Video's not actually starting yet. Gotcha. No, it is. If you don't care about what I'm about to say, like you're not a regular viewer, or it's just not something you give a shit about, I'll put a timestamp in here just to tell you where to skip to. Won't be long, this will only take a minute. But anyway, so as we speak, I'm almost finished editing the video you're about to watch, and I am so sorry this took as long to come out as it did. I thought this was going to be like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks at most. This has just been a quick, easy one. Not going to worry about too many big ideas in it. Just get working on other, got other stuff to work on. We'll get to that. And then I hit writer's block like 5 times. Motivation's been just completely all over the place. And yeah. Again, so sorry. Other stuff will be coming out at more regular intervals. Anyway, something that you will notice that's a little bit weird about this video is that there is zero mention of politics in it. I get that people think that that is pretty weird for me, and it is. However, as some of you may know, I am Australian. We did just recently have a pretty huge federal election. My poor mates in real life have had a full month of me not shutting up about it, so this one's just... there's none in it. I'm really sorry. Anyway, for those of you who do enjoy the politics side of this channel, luckily for you, not for everyone else, I am actually branching out in the kind of content I am making. As I mentioned, when I hit writer's block, I ended up working on a lot of other different scripts. Some of those scripts are purely politics and like history and economics focused, which I will be making, and they will come out. Yay, announcement. Anyway, point is, in the future, going forward, don't expect purely film from the Film by Stace channel. Anyway, sorry this has been a bit ranty, this is completely off the cuff. I don't know, I just felt I kind of needed to say it. Anyway.
No, I can't love you.
You guys have all heard the adage, no pain, no gain, before, right? I mean, it's a pretty common phrase, and it's most often used in relation to the gym. There is a certain kind of pain associated with pushing your muscles to mechanical failure and activating as many motor units as possible to stimulate, well, muscle growth. Your body takes the stimuli of muscular exertion and adapts to it. Strength builds your muscles back bigger, stronger, more effectively. It makes sense. If you're an Ooga Booga caveman running around chasing down mammoth, and mammoth big, mammoth hard, you run a lot, well then it would make sense for you to get better at running. Now, obviously, the gym has a very different connotation to this. You're building big muscles for the sexy, not for the mammoth, sadly. But that doesn't remove anything from the interest behind the phrase. No pain, no gain is also used in other contexts, notably the pain of a YouTube video essayist starting their video with a long-winded and barely related analogy, which they tie back into at the end. Now, joke's on you, I'm not actually doing that because, first off, I haven't thought that far ahead, and I already wrote that part of the script before this one, so you don't have to worry about that. You can thank me later. No pain, no gain is also used a lot in discussion of tasks which are for your benefit, but also suck fat donkey balls. Like, for instance, going to work, dumping a toxic partner, or shooting yourself in the foot so that you can build up better bullet resistance, so that you can eventually shoot bigger and bigger bullets into yourself, and then eventually become invincible.
Stand ready for...
The problem with the attitude surrounding no pain, no gain, which is developed now in some parts of society, particularly middle-aged, white, semi-conservative men who've never set foot in a job site before, but for some reason have a pair of work boots sitting somewhere in a leaf blower, so that's close enough, who insist that hard work, suffering, a bit of grit and elbow grease is literally the only thing ever needed to succeed. I don't entirely have the time or the will to break down just how incredibly wrong that is. But this whole idea related to no pain, no gain has been historically very much tied to masculinity. Hence why said men, who are the least masculine of all, like to champion it, because yes, god damn it, I really do need, as a office worker suburbanite, that absolutely gigantic Ford Ranger, and I do need to drive it like an absolute buffoon. It's essential to me being a man. Now, this isn't me obviously disagreeing with the idea of no pain, no gain, because, I mean, well, it is kind of true. You know, training yourself to handle discomfort is a very important part of becoming a well-rounded and functioning human being. You know, training yourself to be able to handle hardship and come out of it stronger is very important, you know? Life's not all sunshine and rainbows, sweet cakes, you know? Sometimes Twister done come through, pick up house, throw house, pick up wife, throw wife, fuck 5 goddamn mile away, now no more wife, no more house, you know? You gotta be ready to handle discomfort when wife gone 5 mile, yee! How? And you know, there is value in hard work, there is value in strong character and constitution, and there is value in discipline and endurance, and the ability to withstand pain. You know, these are important things for just about anyone, you know, it's not just a masculinity thing. But the point is that it's almost made us have this expectation that pain is necessary, almost as if you can't actually achieve anything unless there's a lot of pain involved. Now, sure, pain is ever present, but I wouldn't go as far to say as it's essential. This fetishization of pain and suffering, this isn't just a boring white conservative thing either. This is something that has applied to all of society. I mean, look at all of the people who wear their pain, suffering, and trauma like it's a badge on their arm or a medal of honor of some kind. Like, being able to withstand pain is, you know, yeah, obviously, that's admirable, man, that's cool, but, like, you don't go telling literally everyone you meet that, and you certainly don't let it define you. That's not a healthy way of handling it. So, why are we envious of it? Why are we saying stupid things like, oh yeah, you slept 5 hours last night? Well, I only slept 3. Ooh, you can handle this much torture to your liver? Well, I can handle this much, you know? It's getting a bit silly. The more I've thought about it, where these kinds of sentiments are coming from, you know, what kind of people are saying them, the more I realise that a decent chunk of these people do live really easy lives. At least in comparison to historical or other contexts. You know, I mean, most people in developed countries do live relatively easy lives. And so I feel this is a reaction to the fact that we've lost touch with real pain. So we get complacent. So we let atrocities happen on far-off shores because we've lost touch with what real suffering really feels like. And we let those who want to perpetuate this suffering slowly erode the protections and systems and laws which have, well, protected us from them doing the same to us as well. And then we realise nothing is protected forever. No peace is ever permanent. The good times are never eternal. As I said before, pain might not be essential to life, but it is ever present. It will always find ways to afflict us somehow. Let us pray that pain does not come back worse than ever before, and that we do not take decisions which move pain from just defining us as mere people to defining our world, an era, an age, our society. Because if we define an entire world by pain, then we end up with a world not so far off from what we see in Mad God. So let's talk about Mad God. I think this will go easiest if I just do the the usual basic introduction and then go from there because oh boy, there's a lot to break down here. So, Mad God is a 2021 stop-motion animation film created over almost 30 years by Phil Tippett, a veteran and legend of the animation industry. And yes, there are other members of the cast and crew, but Jesus Christ, a ridiculous amount of this film is by him. And this film is sheer madness. Mad God is the first film I've seen in a long time where I properly had to put down the snacks that I was eating because it just felt so icky to be both eating and witnessing what I was at the same time. The attention to detail in this film is just absolutely unbelievable. There's a thoughtful attention and level of humanity afforded to every single character, a cryptic horror and unique creative vision to every set piece, and a tangible, squelchy, blood-stained detail to every prop, environment, machine, just everything that appears on screen in this movie. I mean, this ain't your average horror movie. Heck, even calling it a horror movie is... I mean, it feels weird. Mad God really loves to defy categorization and description. It is, in the purest sense, surreal. And yet, so visceral, so intense, and so bizarre. I know people say this a lot with things, particularly films, but really, there is nothing quite like Mad God. Nothing even remotely close. So, let's try and break down what's going on in this movie. Mad God is, at least when you decode enough of it, post-apocalyptic. At some point in the past, before the world we see in the film is born, a wretched, corrupt mankind destroys itself with a bomb powerful enough to end a world. And what emerges in its wake is an entire land of nothing but pain, suffering, and twisted monsters, a punishment for the errors of our now long-eradicated society. A new world has been forged, in which the same mistakes and errors of its denizens have been repeated again and again. There's a lot of symbolism here with the towers of man's cities. They directly call back to the Tower of Babel seen at the beginning of the film, which is promptly destroyed by, well, we assume God. Again, a lot of this film lives purely in the symbolic realm, whilst most certainly a fair amount of what you are seeing is, I guess, canon, or real in the story's sense. A large amount of it lies in the surreal land of metaphor. For instance, with the start of the film, a character known as the Assassin, the closest thing Mad God has to a main character, descends down in what appears to be not too dissimilar to a diving bell attached to a rope descending down into the underworld depths. For reasons, while I'll explain later, he almost seems as though an angel descending from heaven, but in a world where heaven is an eternal war zone above layers of horrific, wretched planes, you can guess there isn't quite the whole holy love and guidance thing you'd usually expect from religion. After all, almost the first thing the assassin does upon exiting the bell is step on a small cluster of gnome-like creatures, crushing them without caring if they were even there. Assassin, dude. We gotta sit you down, man, because you need to learn how to make better small talk, be more presentable. Because, crushing small innocent creatures? Buddy, not a great first impression. In all seriousness, though, this immediate first impression very much sets the tone for the film, as we see the assassin continue his journey, avoiding helping every other creature along the way. It becomes clear, when we follow the angel symbolism of his character, that we get a certain message. No one in this world is the good guy. No one is coming to save the people lost in this land. Well, maybe not coming to. Going to. I'll explain that later. Mad God may be, in some senses, a bit of a pessimistic movie. It doesn't have the most glimmering approach when it comes to its metaphors for mankind and our society. Again, the no good guys thing is not the cheeriest of outlooks. When you have the same ideas in your movie as in Warhammer 40k, it's probably not a very positive and family-friendly film. Whilst I wouldn't say Mad God is political or politically relevant like many of the other films I've discussed on this channel, to which I am so sorry, my poor viewers, I promise not to bring up Reagan in this one, it definitely does identify and take issue with the problems in our modern society. The assassin, after descending down past a semi-mechanical creature, multiple stories tall, whose sole purpose is to produce endless humanoid drones, reaches the clearest analogy in the film to us. These drones, who we are shown to feel pain, fear, and all of the other things required for us to feel sympathy for them, are worked tirelessly, brutally, and endlessly in an almost factory society to produce large metallic monoliths. These drones are subjected to many, many different forms of torment and death. They're crushed, they're smashed, they're burnt, they're torn apart. You get the gist. And they're overseen by these weird, bulbous creatures and a being who we only see through TV screens, and only their mouth and one eye, mind you, as they speak like a baby in pure gibberish. Moving past the fact that that's a completely nightmarish image that I haven't been able to stop thinking about for the last week. They're in the walls. They're in the walls. They're in the walls! This blind obedience and endless work, all to result in being unceremoniously, let down, has its obvious parallels to society. No, I'm not making a joke. You cannot make me. On top of this, we see other sins of man. One of the first things we see as the assassin descends down from the inky black sky is a military installation and endless war. The heartless lack of empathy demonstrated by the assassin himself, and the pride and endless quest of power symbolized through the building of taller and taller towers towards the heavens, echoed many times throughout the film. With that being said, however, whilst Mad God does clearly posit that, given a chance to start anew, mankind will always repeat its old mistakes, war never changes, and all that, there are some elements of deranged aid. Whilst the God in this movie is perhaps not mad, merely uncaring, there is a character who is in some twisted way attempting to do the right thing. After taking this weird baby through a long and winding road, I will not explain where that baby comes from. You're gonna have to watch the movie to understand that one. It's fucked. A creature resembling a plague doctor brings the baby to a mad scientist who has just finished up making several small, quite friendly creatures kill each other in a jar. He then prepares a machine. The baby is then crushed and turned into powder by said machine, and the plague doctor then throws said powder into a furnace, leading to just a surreal and otherworldly display of colours, stars, the Big Bang, and the obelisks which give life to desolate worlds. Oh, sweet 2001 Space Odyssey. And then more clocks. This is interesting and important, as if we follow the line of logic through of the God of this twisted universe simply being uncaring and uninterested in the well-being of the worlds under their control, and turn to the first scene, we get something of an interesting motivation forming. Now, I get there's some debate among fans of the film as to whether or not the Plague Doctor is the figure standing atop the Tower of Babel at the start, but I frankly don't care. They seem to have the same wispy figure, same guy to me. And as far as I'm concerned, all the Plague Doctor seems to be bothered with is attempting to reach out and up to the god of this world, attempting to curry sympathy and favour in hopes that they will at last help this sick and twisted world heal. This god, however, we see clearly, has no real intention of doing so. Instead, he seems more focused on just destroying this world. The last man is probably the most interesting character in this film to me. I mean, first off, look at him. He's fucking weird as shit, dude. Like, you look at a man like this, and it's kind of only natural to go, the hell is this guy's deal? Now, as for why he's called the Last Man, I do have some theories. Some film theories. Kill myself. He may be the last person left after the apocalypse and collapse of the old society. He may be the last true, full-blooded human. Regardless, throughout the entire film, there's this weird relationship the world within it has to verticality. Again, the higher you go up in this world, the closer you get to the heavens. So for most of the characters and creatures of this film, they are looking up, building up, trying to go up. Whereas the Last Man, standing above it all, is the only one looking down. Under him, the Last Man possesses an army of many, many, many assassins. Hence my assertion that they are angels, who he sends down into the crepit depths of this rotting world bearing briefcases. Within, contained, are bombs. Yes, the same bomb that is used to destroy the old world. The Last Man has clearly been at this for quite a while. We see many, many briefcases throughout the film, and we see many, many deceased assassins. We see the fine routine which has been created for sending them down, and we see how the assassin, presumably too, fails and meets the same fate as the many thousands, potentially tens or hundreds of thousands before him. Whilst in all other aspects, this god leaves the world below him to turn into nothing but uncivilized chaos filled with rampant murder, cruelty, decay, and disease. He does most certainly still interact with it, just not in any way which would fix it. This obviously brings to mind the quote from Albert Einstein. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And Einstein's right. I've seen this opinion expressed where the madness of this mad god comes from his inability to ever change his outlook or approach, endlessly sending war pigs into the depths to accomplish his mission, only for them to fail and die in all sorts of horrific ways every time. I think this idea also ties into the weird way that time is expressed in this film. Clocks changing the rate at which they tick, the clocks in the mad scientist's lair. Again, I said there was a lot of clocks in this film. Clocks. Anyway, time is a very arbitrary thing in this world. And it makes sense for it to be that way. If this world really is nothing but an endlessly repeating cycle, an endless war, an endless production of monoliths, an endless stream of assassins heading down to their demise, to what does time matter? You know? What purpose does the passage of time hold when the cycle of horror is eternal? Again, a core idea of this film is that mankind is doomed to perpetually repeat his own mistakes. So, what matter does time have over not only this world, but our own, if the same cycles of problems are to forever plague our world? If we are to endlessly work, endlessly suffer, generation after generation, war after war, preventable disease after preventable disease, what meaning does time truly have if all that it changes is the tools with which these cycles are maintained and powered by? I mean, it's a good question, but I really couldn't tell you. In 170 CE, Emperor Marcus Aurelius leads a campaign against the Germanic tribes. Now, before you go clicking off this video, thinking I'm turning into one of those Muppets with the Greek statue as their profile picture, don't worry. I'm just bringing this up because it's a good analogy, alright?
Be cool, honey bunny, be cool.
Now, whilst the conquests of the war would be somewhat short-lived, and an important part of this campaign was what its consequences would mean for the empire at large. See, the Roman Empire had struggled many times over the course of its history to crush the Germanic tribes and, well, most of Eastern and Northern Europe. This is especially interesting considering Rome's place in the food chain of the world at the time. I mean, they were top dog in military might, cultural achievements, science and technology, a fierce rival to China when it was actually in one piece and not a million different provinces just splintering every time someone died. The Roman Empire enjoyed some of the greatest spoils anyone alive at the time could have afforded, and under the guidance of the 5 good emperors in their era of what has become known as Pax Romana, had enjoyed some of the highest heights the empire had ever seen. Yet, it was becoming clear, like the old saying, that good times were producing weak men. Many within the empire, rather unwisely, did not take the barbarian threat seriously, or didn't really care enough about many of the empire's problems. Despite the fact the war against the barbarians had been long and bloody, corruption and incompetence had wrecked many of the northern provinces. I mean, Lower Pannonia didn't even have a legion, and so the war dragged on and was very hard fought. Whilst for us now, there were charitable things this war had brought. Notably, it was on this campaign that Marcus wrote the, depending who you talk to, famous or infamous meditations. It would also be the war Marcus would die during the fight of, and would, after 3 years of shared rule, would be succeeded by his son, Commodus. As anyone who's watched Gladiator knows, things would only go downhill from there. The mistakes of former Emperor Nero would be echoed in Commodus. Both men raised and taught by the best teachers and philosophers, afforded great golden ages, and by all accounts should have been prepared to have an absolutely great rule. And yet squandered it with corruption, extravagance, incompetence, paranoia, and ego. And both are now used today as examples of, well, not great rulers. I mean, they're not men you want people in positions of power to have similarities with. But the point is that their circumstances are so similar, their actions are so similar, and the destruction they wrought, their mistakes, are also eerily similar. Although, for the record, Nero was a lot worse than Commodus. Like, Commodus was pretty bad, but everybody knows Nero was awful. Point is, this is just a microcosm of the ebb and flow, up and down, good emperors, bad emperors, the never-ending cycle of construction and destruction that covered the history of the Roman Empire and the Republic that preceded it. This endless cycle is seen everywhere in history. Again, the saying, history always repeats itself, comes from somewhere of genuine merit. History, well, does. Sure, learning about history definitely helps to prevent this, But there is never truly an eternal golden age for anything, ever. So, that's the thing with Mad God. Sure, whilst man is always fated to remake his same errors, to define himself and his world through his pain, to create and justify suffering, to repeat this cruel cycle again and again and again and again and again, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't look for solutions. Again, the world of Mad God is utterly fucked, and yet still produces characters, or character, who in their own twisted ways are still trying to save it. And that's really, really interesting to me, because Mad God doesn't actually propose any actual solutions to this cycle. It doesn't want you to think or feel anything, or give her an answer on how to fix it, because who the hell is qualified to give an opinion like that, you know? Life is such a vast and complicated problem with no clear answer or solution, and trying to act like you're an expert on, well, the entirety of existence in our society is, how do I put this? Ever so slightly somewhat beyond the scope of your average person. So Mad God doesn't try to. Sure, the world it presents is filthy and wretched and a really scary interpretation of our own, but it still tries its best to provide different perspectives and weird, creepy looks into the bizarre way that it all works and what it all means. And that's the real tragedy I find with the end of the movie, is that from what we can tell, the bomb does go off. Yes, again, spoilers, the assassin does not fail. And we don't know if any of the solutions or ideas that were proposed ever could have worked, or if somehow this world could have been fixed or saved. But then again, it's also quite a fitting way for the film to end. Because, really, again, who's qualified to give an answer like that? Not a dumb bastard like Nero or Commodus, that's for sure. Thank you for watching. I've been filmed by Stace, and if you haven't already, go watch Mad God. It's one hell of an interesting time.